Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today at the New Mexico Department of Justice. For those of you who have been covering the initiatives of this office, you'll recognize that the top public safety priority of our special agents and prosecutors is the protection of children. And so today it's with great pride that I announce the results of a weeks-long operation, Operation Overwatch, which just last week culminated in the arrest of 8 individual suspects and the issuance of an additional arrest warrant for individuals who were engaged with undercover agents from several different agencies, not only our agents here at NMDOJ, but also the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Homeland Security Investigations, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, Santa Fe Police Department, the Albuquerque Police Department. Over the last several weeks, various agents working in an undercover capacity established decoy accounts on a number of different non-traditional digital platforms and digital messaging services, including Kik, Discord, Skip the Games, Mocospace, Grindr, FetLife, and Sniffies. What they were able to do was to establish both underage personas and presented themselves as either minor children or as adults, usually parents who were offering to traffic children for sex. As a result, they were able to initiate contact, as I said, with several suspects, including individuals like Mahmoud Telfa, who was arrested last week. He's been charged with 1 count of child solicitation by electronic communication device, attempted criminal sexual penetration of a minor, sexual exploitation of children by prostitution. As you can see from the screenshot that's been included, the chat, he engaged in a conversation of an explicit nature with someone that he believed to be an underage girl. And when he arrived at one of 2 locations here in the Albuquerque metro area, he was taken into custody. Similarly, Samantha G. Clark was also apprehended for engaging with someone that she believed was attempting to make their child available for sex. She's been charged with child solicitation by electronic communication device, attempted criminal sexual penetration of a child, and sexual exploitation of child by prostitution. And last, Stephen Charles Phillips, who engaged in similar conduct with someone that he believed to be the father of an underage child. And as you can see from just this small segment of the chat, he believed that he was engaging with somebody who was offering up their child for sexual intercourse. These are some of the other individuals who were apprehended in the course of the operation. As I said before, there is an outstanding arrest warrant for a suspect who has been identified through the course of this investigation. I would like to say that none of this would have been possible without the collaborative efforts and support of state, local, and federal law enforcement partners, and I'm proud to be joined by them today. I'm going to invite each of them to come up to the podium and give a few remarks about why this initiative is important, what kind of resources they invested, and what they think will be the ultimate outcome of engaging in this kind of proactive law enforcement investigation. And I'll start by inviting Special Agent in Charge Raúl Bujanda of the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
Good morning. I hope this is really a kind of a wake-up call to all these predators that come and prey on our children, our most vulnerable. Whether you're within the state or outside of the state, there is no good reason to ever go after our most vulnerable. Every year, thousands of children become victims of crimes, whether it's through kidnappings, violent attacks, sexual abuse, human trafficking, or online predators. Today is another important example of law enforcement's commitment to bring child predators to justice and disrupt all forms of exploitation. There is no doubt that the strong relationships between the men and women that you see not only out on the street, but you see also the men standing here behind me, is that these partnerships is the reason why we continue to be so successful. You see a snippet of just some of the agencies, but every single law enforcement agency is not going to be putting up with anyone trying to cause harm to any of our children. The FBI will continue to adjust our resources to make sure that we are up to this threat, to make sure as this threat continues to evolve, and it has continued to evolve, that we will continue to do right by the citizens of New Mexico. Parents play a huge role in this as well. We need parents to know exactly what their children are doing. We need parents to be involved. They need to be someone their children can go to in times of need so that they can ask the questions that need to be asked. And unfortunately, at times, if they become a victim, they have someone they can go to so they can start to get the help they need to mend, to heal, and also to go after these predators that need to be prosecuted. I would ask that if you find yourself in that situation, that you call local law enforcement and you also report that to the FBI as well. You can always reach us at the 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips.fbi.gov. This needs to be reported. This is something that no one in this state is going to put up with. We do this in partnership, and for that, I want to introduce one of our partners that helped us out with this investigation, J.T. Stevens, Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent in charge.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the gentleman standing behind me. Your leadership and your support of this type of operation is extremely critical. But even more so, our personnel that were out there at night, on the weekends, ensuring that this operation not only was concluded safely, but successfully. Online child sexual exploitation and abuse is a horrific crime that targets some of the most vulnerable individuals in our society, our children and our teens. It includes a broad range of criminal acts that involve victimizing a minor for sexual gratification or some other personal or financial gain. In the last decade, online child sexual exploitation and abuse has increased exponentially and is now a global epidemic. HSI investigates this crime globally, at home, abroad, and online to prevent harm to you locally. And that's what we did this past week with our partners, is we worked locally to ensure that our citizens and our children and our teens are protected. For us, we live and work in the very communities that we're sworn to protect. So for HSI, it's personal. In 2014, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received more than 1 million reports for the first time. Since then, the numbers have increased to reports rising to over 36 million in 2023. Last year, HSI special agents dedicated over 1.2 million case hours related to child exploitation crimes. The lack of understanding of online child sexual exploitation and abuse, along with increased technology and use among our children and teens, has created a space for these crimes, these criminals, and these predators to flourish. However, criminals and predators operating in that space should know that we are also in that space. We were in that space last week, and we're going to be in that space again soon. This successful effort and collaboration amongst the partners that are here was started to protect our vulnerable population. This operation did shine the light on a widespread issue, prompting us to begin our plans for our next operation. If you're out there and you're lurking in the dark, looking for our children and teens, we're going to be back there looking for you. I'd like to take this time to introduce Sheriff John Allen, Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see behind me, between federal, state, and local law enforcement entities, that's so important. This just isn't seen here locally. This is seen statewide. This is seen here regionally. This is also seen all around the nation. These cases are sickening. The disappointing thing is we know there's more of you out there. And as you can see that we're a fortified front here standing in front of you, we are looking for you. We will find you. We know that you can't help yourself, so we're going to make sure that we protect our most vulnerable, which is our children. And we will continue to do so with a collaborative effort as this goes all across the nation with the Albuquerque Police Department, State Police, Santa Fe Police Department. We have so many people involved. Many constituents write me on a daily basis of crime, but you will be surprised how many requests and problems that I get on child exploitation, and it is overwhelming. I won't tell you, and we won't tell you every time that we're coming. We are today, and we know we'll find you, but there are a lot of things that our detectives, our deputies, our officers are doing and being heroic every day. And when we do that together, as you see, again, standing behind us, we're going to make a difference, and we're going to keep doing so because, unfortunately, let's be honest with each other, there's many more out there just waiting to victimize our children, and we'll be there to make sure that we protect our children. They're our future. So many other issues going on at schools, for them to be online, for them to have predatory people coming after them. Parents and guardians, please, please pay attention to what your children are doing, the apps that they're in, what they're doing online. Specifically what they're just doing on their phone. Please monitor it and make sure that you're evaluating what they're doing and what they're talking about. And also notice the warning signs. If they're not able to speak to you, if they've had a problem when they come home and they're not even to talk to about what happened at school, you know your children better than we do when something's wrong with them. Please be curious and please ask them specifically what is going on, and also what their friends are doing when they go to somebody else's home, what they're doing when you're not supervising over them. Make sure that you're communicating also with friends, with other parents that they're either spending the night with, having a birthday party, any sports activities. Notice the warning signs and be a team player like we are here. We're here to support and make those arrests, but we also need you to be assistants for us to make sure that our children are safe. But other than that, I would like to introduce Commander Kyle Hartsock from the Albuquerque Police Department.
Thank you, Sheriff, and I just want to say sorry about the Cowboys yesterday.
Yes, that was torturous.
I'm Commander Kyle Hartsock with APD, our Criminal Investigation Division, and I've actually personally worked these cases since 2009 when I became a detective. I've done them as a task force officer with the feds and just as a local sheriff's deputy back when I was with BCSO. And make no mistake, these efforts are so collaborative because law enforcement has no bounds to do anything we can to catch people that want to meet a child and have some kind of sexual relationship with them. And what we've also found is when we identify these bad actors, we are stopping a future sexual assault of a child, period. They were never going to assault us. We're an adult with a gun. They were going to assault a kid, and if they didn't meet us, they were about to go meet some other kid maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe a couple of years from now. So I always compare these things to sobriety checkpoints. Don't be in a sexual conversation with a child, and you will never have to meet us. It's never acceptable. It's never acceptable. Stay away from it. Get help, or as Sheriff and others said, we can help you. You probably won't like the help that we're going to give. So get yourself help. And I've doubled down on everything. The parents have good trusting conversations with your kids. You can try to go through their phone for days. They'll just outsmart you half the time. Really, you just have to have a good conversation with them, and hopefully they come to you when they see something scary online or on their phone and talk to you about it. But these operations reduce the amount of hands-on sex abuse cases my detectives have to get assigned. So I love these operations, and we can't wait to do the next one. Thank you.
So before we open it up for questions, I just want to take a moment to emphasize a couple of points that my partners emphasized. And that is, first, law enforcement is working together, and we are on these platforms, we are in these spaces. We are looking for anyone who's engaged in this activity, and there is no resource that we are not going to put forward in terms of fighting what I think is one of the most dangerous and harmful crimes that we can possibly have in our society. The second thing, and this is really important, we can't do this alone. We cannot do the work that we need to do to try and make children safe in our community without engaged civic leaders, educational leaders, but most importantly, parents. This is a message that I have delivered on a number of occasions. We've filed numerous civil actions against large social media platforms, and we make the case again and again, and it needs to be made again today. Parents need to be mindful about what is going on with their kids, and specifically who they're communicating with on video game platforms, in all virtual spaces, every internet platform or social media application that they have. If parents haven't had or taken the time to sit down with their child and go through what is always a difficult conversation, but a necessary conversation about who they are communicating with. The thing that we fear the most is one of these predators slipping through our net and contacting a child and inflicting harm in unimaginable ways. And that is something that we can only stop with active, engaged parents really leaning in and really thinking carefully about what's going on in digital spaces. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
I think could be out there in Albuquerque or New Mexico at large.
So the reality is, our special agents who work in internet crimes against children, they do this kind of work on an ongoing basis. They do chat work on an ongoing basis. What was special about this is the ability to sort of amplify their reach by adding investigative capacity from our partner agencies. The sad truth is that there is no limit, really, to the number of people who are operating in these spaces who've expressed a sexual interest in children. And so I think that's why it's critically important to get that proactive engagement by parents when their kids are online. They need to really understand who they're communicating with. And one thing that I would note is we intentionally worked some of these cases not through some of the bigger social media applications, which we've talked about in the past, but some of the smaller ones, and with video games and other kinds of platforms that kids are using, because we know that's a place where predators slip through. So it's incredibly important to take that broad view of how these predators are targeting kids.
I don't know if this is a question for Kyle, if whoever wants to jump in here, right? But one of the things from reading these criminal complaints that were unique was you were posing as parents prostituting children,
Yeah.
which would suggest that that's really going on. Do you suspect that there are actual parents out there who are prostituting their children?
Yes, there are absolutely parents that are trafficking children, their own children, online in online spaces. Unfortunately, I was an internet crimes against children prosecutor. I saw this in my experience. I know Kyle has worked on these cases, and I'll have him come forward, but this is something that we see on a daily basis.
And then to follow up on that, are you targeting them too, trying to catch them?
Yeah, I mean, I've charged a parent with trafficking their child. So parents in that feeling of greed or whatever it is will do anything sometimes to make money or pay off a debt. So we're aware of it. It's more rare, of course, than just some of these general idiots that show up, but it's absolutely out there, and it's especially dangerous because a parent is who the kid trusts. It is their person, right? And so the kid is definitely going to do whatever mom or dad says. So we absolutely want to find 100% of parents that are doing this kind of behavior, and they can meet us.
Hi, my name is Faye. I'm with KUNT. I have two questions, but before I even get into that, just for clarity, the Stephen Joseph guy, is there still a warrant out for his arrest? Like he has to? Okay.
Yes.
So, my first question, like, what message does this send for vigilante groups too? Because I think oftentimes the lines get blurred, and I know a lot of times they like to take matters into their own hands. But what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, and I'll ask Special Agent in charge Buhanda to come and address that, because I think that's critically important, not just in this context, but in every context. The men here in uniform are highly trained and specially trained to deal with complex criminal investigations. Vigilantism has no place in our criminal justice system at all. It has no place in our society in terms of untrained cowboys taking it upon themselves to try and track people down. In fact, oftentimes they can not only endanger themselves, they can endanger other people, and they can also endanger strong criminal cases that we could otherwise put together and take people off the streets. So I can't say it strongly enough. There is no space in any kind of vigilante activity in this operation or any other. But I'd turn it over to Special Agent in charge Buhanda to talk more about that.
Yeah, the one thing, Faith, I would add, we're also 100% responsive. So law enforcement is going to be there responding, so we don't need no vigilante group out there. We don't see that really in the state of New Mexico. We're always tracking to make sure they're not going after this or any other type of activity, but this is something that law enforcement is going to be there 100% of the time. And I'll even further add that some of these predators purposely don't want their name out there, so they use different types of pseudonyms or whatnot to try to make our job a little harder. They don't really make it harder, but they think they're making it harder. We're going to find who they are, but a vigilante group might not have that information. They might actually be going after someone who's just going to be turned into a victim because they had nothing to do with the scam itself.
Thank you, and then my last question.
Can I add something on that real
Oh,
quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Because we actually charged a vigilante group back in April,
You did, yeah.
who I can get you the names after, but they were trying to do this, but the law, just to be clear, only allows law enforcement to pretend to be a child in terms of charging someone. So as they correctly stated and we pointed out, if this really was an offender you were catching, we can never charge them now. That's all you've done. And in many cases, there was entrapment and they were going after very low IQ individuals that wasn't necessarily even clear if they were actually trying to commit this issue. And they were doing it for likes on Instagram. So we charged 4 individuals with it back in April, wanted to point that out. And we sent out a strong message against that. Called police, called FBI, submit a tip online. Law enforcement works these cases every day.
Thank you, and then just my last question, because I know you guys were specifying how important parents need to be involved with their kids and what have you. For those that don't have parents or guardians or whatever the case may be, because I think oftentimes like kids, they lean toward different, outsources for, whatever the case may be. How do we combat that, for people that don't have that, for kids that don't have that guidance and are often taken advantage of, and can't turn to a parent, can't turn to a guardian, but often look through these means of communication to be seeked for.
Yeah, so one of the initiatives that's underway at the New Mexico Department of Justice is called the Smart Chats program, where we are actually working with school districts and educators across the state, both to get a baseline understanding from young people about what applications they're on, what social media they're using, what devices they use to communicate with people. We take in that information and process it, then we go back and talk to the leadership at the school, not only about specific ways they can engage with young people at the school to be more proactive in sort of safeguarding their information and protecting themselves online, but to just raise the awareness level within educational institutions, because outside of the home, we think that schools are probably the next best place for us to engage in that kind of public awareness and education. That said, Smart Chats is something that we are willing to partner with other civic groups, youth sports, lots of different community based activities and organizations can reach out to us, Boy Scout troops and the like. We are happy to go in contact and work with leadership there to see if we can help raise some awareness with people.
Can I just add something on that?
Yeah.
So for Homeland Security Investigations,
So we can.
thank you.
Yeah.
For Homeland Security Investigations, we have a federal campaign. It's called Know to Protect. And it's KNOW, the number 2 and then protect. It's a federal campaign where we've also partnered with Snapchat, and we've created a lens for Snapchat so it can kind of create a quiz or interactive tool for I want to say young children or teens that are using that. It also allows parents, I think somebody had mentioned that is kind of a difficult conversation for parents to have because we didn't grow up with those tools. So it kind of facilitates that conversation by asking certain questions. So the Know to Protect campaign is something that they can go online and look for. They can use a Snapchat tool, and hopefully that will enable them in some of those conversations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question for Chief Joyce. I noticed he was here. Chief, we noticed that some of these criminal complaints were written by some of your detectives and the only agency outside the metro. Can you talk about your involvement and why it was important for Santa Fe to be involved in this?
Sure. I was going to hang out in the background. But
You're good at that.
No, it's preferred. But no, this is something, and I want to thank obviously AG Torrez and his team for putting this together, and the detectives and the agents who take these cases very personally and their assignments very personally, and getting these people off the streets. The thing I was hoping that parents would get out of this is here. This isn't an over there problem, and it's incredibly important that our parents, our aware and taking these measures to make sure that their kids know that these people are out there as well. And a lot of parents are like, oh, my kid's smart enough, my kid wouldn't engage in that, my kid knows what they're doing. Regardless, it's important to have those uncomfortable conversations. And to the people who, this is the result of 1 week worth of work. But we have detectives and agents across the state who are working around the clock to get more of these folks. And the people who would commit these crimes, you are not safe. We are looking for you. We can't wait to find you. And we will blast you on the media, and we will put you behind bars.
Jessica Marone with Character News 13. You all mentioned some increasing numbers just nationally, reaching to millions. Would anybody be able to give some insight about what those numbers are looking in the state and how you guys have seen maybe an increasing trend here and what those numbers, like how fast it's kind of going? And I know we have Santa Fe County, if it also, you're seeing an increase in certain areas in the state.
So I don't know that any of our partners have specific, state-specific numbers. We can certainly do the drill down and try and get you more specific numbers both by locality and at the state level. What I can tell you is that the increase that we've discussed tracks precisely with the availability of smartphones, social media applications, and the like, right? Because the relative ease of sharing this type of content, child sexual exploitation material, and also the ease with which predators are able to now communicate directly with children has grown exponentially. It's part of the reason that we filed those lawsuits against Meta and Snap, because we're trying to highlight the fact that it's, adults who have a sick interest in children, a sexual fascination with children, is not necessarily a new phenomenon. What is new is the ease with which the technology that we have created to facilitate social interactions, to improve business communications, they also makes the job of predators easier. It makes their ability to trade child pornography easier. It makes their ability to groom, target, and victimize a child easier. So what you are seeing is really an explosive adoption of a form of communication technology that frankly hasn't had a lot of safeguards, hasn't had as much thought put into it in terms of design features, and it's also created a fractured environment for law enforcement to operate. So if you remember from the overview of this operation, we weren't in just one space. We were in multiple spaces at the same time. And a lot of times when you engage in these communications, what you will see is there will be an initial contact in a particular media application, and then people move that communication onto an encrypted app or an app that they think is a safer way for them to identify and communicate with these children. All of that sort of points us back to where we have all landed, which is to make a commitment publicly to continue to work together and tell people, including the predators, that we are going to be in those spaces. But that's not nearly enough. We have to have parents and adults engaged in a conversation about who their kids are in contact with, what apps are on their phone, what communications are they having through gaming platforms, because the predators have adapted how they go about exploiting children, and so we've had to adapt as well, but we need community support to fight back.
No questions on Zoom.
All right. Thank you again for being here. We certainly appreciate it. And I want, as a closing remark, to remind everyone that this is, I think, an important moment in terms of signifying and demonstrating to the community that law enforcement is committed across the board to investing resources in this. To the predators who are in these spaces, you should know that we are there, we are looking for you, we will arrest you and prosecute you for these crimes, but we also need the help of educators, adults, responsible parents to engage with their kids so that the types of individuals that we've identified today are apprehended in this way, which is thinking they're going to meet up with a child, they actually meet up with an undercover agent. The last thing we want is for them to actually encounter a child in the real world, and that's what we're trying to stop. So thank you again.